Today we're going to continue talking about cells and energy. And in the last vodcast, we went over how does a cell obtain energy. And now we're going to look at how do some cells make food molecules. These two processes are actually the most important biological processes that go on. Last lesson, cellular respiration. This lesson, photosynthesis. And of course, what is that a picture of? Photosynthesis occurs in what structure? In a chloroplast. And so we were looking at those structures when we studied the cell. So let's look at this process of photosynthesis and how God created it as to be one of the most important fundamental biological processes. As we know, the primary need of all cells is energy. And we looked at even living creatures. One of the characteristics of life was they use energy. And so were cells. The ultimate source of that energy is sun. Excuse me. And the reason it's the sun, you'll see when we look at the process of photosynthesis. Some organisms are capable of absorbing light energy, and they convert it into a stored chemical energy, food. This process is called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a series of chemical reactions. So was cellular respiration. But here, these chemical reactions are converting light, energy, water, and carbon dioxide into food energy molecule called glucose. Remember the sugar. And it gives off oxygen, which is a byproduct, and it's a benefit to us because we need to breathe that oxygen. It comes from the Greek word photo, means light, and synthesis means to compose, to make something, to put something together. So photosynthesis, light is used to make something, glucose. Photosynthesis, as I said, is one of the most important biological processes. It is actually the essential step between solar energy and life itself. So it's a very important process to understand, and we'll just touch on the top of it. When you get into biology, you'll actually study it more in detail and what all those different chemical reactions are that take place. So this process, remember, when we have a chemical equation, we have some input, some products that have to go in, and then we have some byproducts, the products that are the end result. Here, in order to have this process occur, we need carbon dioxide, water, and light energy. And then in return, we're going to get the main focus of photosynthesis is to create glucose, a sugar, 6-carbon sugar. And it's that chemical energy that we need in the process of cellular respiration. And a byproduct is, of course, oxygen given off. For photosynthesis to occur, you got to have these special pigments, and that's why the plant kingdom has all these different pigments that are stored in plastids. We've looked mainly at one, the chloroplast, which contains the pigment chlorophyll. So all these pigments, different colors, and now in the fall you're going to start seeing some of these different colors. The reds and the yellows and the oranges. And those were all in the leaf. You just couldn't see it because it was masked by so much chlorophyll that it had. But all these pigments have the job of absorbing light energy. So even the reds and yellows and all the other colors, not just green. The chemical reactions of photosynthesis are powered by light energy. In the chloroplasts of plants, pigments such as chlorophyll, they absorb light energy, but so do the other pigments. Chlorophyll absorbs, and this is interesting on the way that it works. Chlorophyll absorbs all colors except green light, which is reflected as the green color in leaves. So it's because they are not absorbing the green, they are reflecting off the green that we see the green color. Because a lot of people, you think, so absorbing a lot of green from the light, therefore that's why it's green. Nope. It is absorbing all the other colors except green. I like this picture because when we get into plants, we're going to study about the organs of a plant. Because a lot of people, you don't think of a tree, a plant like a tree having organs. Because they don't have organs like we do. They don't have a stomach, a brain, stuff like that. But one of the organs of a plant is a leaf. And that organ's job is to make food, to carry out photosynthesis. And so here you're seeing the light going through the leaf and being absorbed by the different pigments. Of course, here the green, chlorophyll. And it's showing you how it is getting the carbon dioxide that it needs and the water that's coming up from the roots and so forth. So all the ingredients are going there into the chloroplast. The chloroplast, yes, it absorbs the light energy, but it also contains the chlorophyll. Well, that's what's absorbing the light energy, which is a catalyst. So the actual process takes place inside a chloroplast, which is pictured there on the right. In order for photosynthesis to happen, a catalyst must be present. Now remember, catalysts speed up, slow down chemical reactions. And in the cellular respiration, the catalyst was what? Enzymes. Here, the catalyst is chlorophyll. So a few things you need to know about chlorophyll. You need to know that it is a green-colored pigment, the primary catalyst of photosynthesis, and that most chlorophyll is located in chloroplasts. Most of that's a review. And we'll study more of that too also when we get into plants. In addition to chlorophyll, plants and algae have other pigments, red, pink, yellow, brown, etc., yellows. They all absorb light energy, and they give that light energy to the chlorophyll. Now, you need to know the equation. So just like you need to know the equation of cellular respiration, you need to know the equation of photosynthesis. And the primary thing is to learn what are the ingredients needed, which go on the left side of the arrow, and there are three: carbon dioxide, water, and light energy. Two of them are pretty easy to remember because you know that plants need carbon dioxide. Most people know they need it in order to carry out photosynthesis, and they also know that they need light in order to carry out photosynthesis. The one that you may not be familiar with, the ingredient, is water. And then on the arrow you write the catalyst that is used in that biological process. So chlorophyll is the catalyst, and there's different kinds there. Then on the right you write the byproducts. What is the end result of this process? And the main focus is glucose. But oxygen is easy to remember too because that is given off and we breathe that. But water is. So you actually have to have water to begin with, and you have to have water to end with. And you can just write the formula in words. You don't have to learn it in the symbols there of 6 CO2, 6 H2O, light, and then the sugar, which is glucose, C6H12O6. And the number in front of it refers to how many molecules that you need to go in. So they have to actually have 6 carbon dioxide and 6 water to create 1 molecule of glucose. And you have 6 oxygens left over, and then you also have water. Whoops. When an organism eats plant material, it takes in food energy from the plant's glucose. You think, eat plants? Yes. We eat plants directly, and the way we eat them directly is when you eat your fruits and vegetables. Those are plants. And indirectly, our food is also coming from the plants. Because when we eat the meat, let's say you had beef today. When you ate the beef, that is actually a cow. And it's the muscle of the cow. How did that cow create that muscle? By eating plants, grass. If it had not eaten the grass, it wouldn't have the muscle, and we would not be able to eat the meat. So directly and indirectly, all of our food is going back to the producers, and plants mainly are the producers. An organism's cell uses the oxygen released during photosynthesis and converts the food energy into usable energy through cellular respiration. I love how God is so practical and he recycles. So let's look at this. Okay, well, here we got a bird. And in that bird eats. He's eating a berry off the tree. So in that berry is sugar, glucose, that was made by that tree. And so it goes through his digestive system, gets broken down into small enough molecules, goes through the blood, and ends up and goes into a cell. By how? Passive transport. So it goes into the cell and it moves and starts getting digested. Nope, not digested. Starts going through cellular respiration. Remember, first phase is in the cytoplasm. Then it goes into the mitochondria where the other two phases take place. And then the end result is ATP. Now, ATP is the usable energy by cells. They need that energy to do their functions. And so then you see what happens. That energy then, or we breathe out carbon dioxide, so does the bird. So the bird is breathing out carbon dioxide. It's going into the leaf. The sunlight's going into the leaf. The water's coming up from the roots and getting into the leaf. And it's going to make more food, more berries. And when you look at these two processes, I think we'll see it better, I think, on the next page. Yeah. Look at these two processes. It's interesting. I was telling you about the cycling that God does, the recycling. When you ask people, a lot of people do not realize that plants need oxygen. They need oxygen for the exact same purpose that we do, for aerobic cellular respiration. Well, look at the beginning result of cellular respiration. C6H12O6, that's glucose. Look at the byproduct of photosynthesis. So in the green parts of any plant, they have both of these processes going on inside their cells. They have photosynthesis and cellular respiration. So when they make the glucose, they can use some of that glucose for cellular respiration. And they give off oxygen. And they can use that oxygen in cellular respiration. Fortunately, they make more oxygen than they need. They give it off and we use it. So look what happens with cellular respiration. Carbon dioxide is given off. Water is given off, and ATP. The carbon dioxide and the water are necessary for the process of photosynthesis. So it's like some of the byproducts are used for the ingredients, and some of the ingredients then are the byproducts are used for the ingredients of the other. So it cycles, and it does do that in the green parts of the plants, because only the green parts have the ability to carry out photosynthesis. Now in animals, we do not have both of those processes going on. We just have cellular respiration. And so we're called consumers. Those that can carry out photosynthesis, they're called the producers. Why? They produce the food. And so that's what you need to know about photosynthesis. And last lesson, cellular respiration. Two most important biological processes that God created.